Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining our webinar today. Just want to start, we're going to launch a poll for demographics and then go over some housekeeping things. And then I'll introduce our wonderful speakers and we'll go ahead and jump into the talk. So just some housekeeping things while we have that poll go up. So in this format, this webinar format, we have a Q&A box and we also have the chat box. So if you have any questions or you have any comments, feel free to add them into the chat box. All your comments will be posted live in the Q&A box. Us panelists here will get those questions and we can read them out to the audience at the end and have a live Q&A at the end of the presentation. Okay, and then we'll give it about a minute for this poll. Okay, and we can go ahead and end this poll. It's been about a minute. Okay, awesome. And yeah, so we'll go ahead and jump into our webinar. And I just wanted to introduce, here we have with us Kehau. She's part of the Community Coconut Program, and she's here to talk with us about safeguarding Hawaiian Niu. And so I'll go ahead and let you share your screen and yeah, and let us know if you have any questions. Again, you can put that in the chat box.
Okay, good to share.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, aloha everybody. Thank you, Arisa, for setting this up for us. My name is Kehau. I work under the Community Coconut Program with Injured. Just want to shout this guy out. He's inside the audience. He's a big part of why we do what we do and really grew our love for coconuts and our just being Kanaka and reclaiming our identity back. And so, yeah, I just want to give a shout out to him and mahalo Risa for this opportunity. Okay. Everybody can see the screen. Okay. So we're just gonna talk about safeguarding Hawaiian Niu, why it's important. This is the work that's been done with Niu Now and the Community Coconut Project. So why is it important? Yeah, securing these ancient Niu varieties. If you take a look at these pictures, this is a tree out in Makaha at one of the houses of our aunties. And so this is what the tree looked like before, and this is kind of what it looks like now. And this is one of the progeny trees of this original grove out at Poka'i. And there's a mo'olelo that talks about this ancient voyaging chief. His name was Poka'i, and he brought coconuts to Oahu. And so these were some of the first coconuts here on Oahu. And it's stories like this, yeah. Queen Emma talks about in her journal how this was the sweetest Niu that she ever tasted when it was gifted to her. Coconuts was kind of a lost practice. Yeah, a lot of people don't really grow coconuts or do things with coconuts. I myself didn't start doing this until way later, like in my college years, and I didn't have a relationship with coconut. And so every time we plant a coconut, it's not only helping the Niu reclaim their identity, but it's helping us reclaim our identity as Kanaka and reconnecting us back to these stories, back to this history. And for me, being born and raised on the West Side, yeah, it's a special story for me because there's so many bad stereotypes that get connected to that. And so knowing these stories and knowing the history, like we have the sweetest coconuts. Yeah, a lot of people don't know these stories, and I feel like when we don't know the stories and the histories of our place, that's kind of what is the disconnect with who we are. And in this picture right here on the right, these are the last 4 seeds from this tree that was planted at Ulupo. And this is Nalamuku right here. He was the main one that ran this event with Kula Kalana. And so this is representing the future generation, of this tree that's now make. And so that's super special for us to be able to do that, not only with this tree, but a lot of trees that, are being attacked by CRB. This was the apu that Jesse made from this tree. And this was from the same tree that's now make. So just being able to preserve the identity of this niu and niu as a practice. And in order to do so, some of the big things that we do is documenting and selecting seeds for the new germplasm. This was our last round that we did at West Oahu. After we collect the seeds, we go out and we go and document the trees and pick seeds from that tree. And then we set them out by varieties, and we'll lay them around the nursery, and then we'll plant them strategically. This is the front and this is the back. We'll go from left to right, and we'll do every single slot all the way until we get to the end. And in about 6 months, this is kind of how big they'll get or what they'll look like, and they're actually ready to huki, and then we'll lay them back out again. Not only for aesthetic purposes, but just to visually see, like, okay, this is how much germinated from how much we started with, and just being able to see those numbers. And normally they have about an 80% survival or germination rate, so it's pretty high. But in places like West Oahu, it's very dry, so we have to take extra measures for the watering and water retention and things like that. So in order to document, there's a very specific protocol and process that we follow. And when we're looking at the morphological characteristics, there's a system that was developed by the guidance of the International Coconut Genetic Resources Network. And so just being able to visually look at a tree and see and document the different shapes. Here we have ovate, obovate, elliptic, and circular is kind of the 4 main shapes. Ovate, it'll start big up here and get skinnier. Obovate will kind of be the opposite of that, and it'll get bigger towards the bottom. Elliptic will kind of look more like a moon, and it'll be even on both sides. And circular will, self-explanatory, will kind of be like a perfect circle. And for the crown shape, there's 4 different ones. Spherical means the entire tree, you'll see leaves. Semi-spherical, it would just be this top half of the crown here. X-shaped, it'll kind of have this X, so it'll have leaves going up and leaves going down. And this is the green leaves. And V-shaped, it'll kind of just be in a V like this. And another thing that we look at is the color. So we'll look at the shapes of the fruit and the crown, and then we'll look at the color. This is some or most of the color scale that will kind of follow. It's kind of not to scale, because when you see and you take a picture, it's a little bit different, but this is the closest that we could get it. We try to be as specific as possible when we're documenting, so we know exactly, like, if we grow this tree, we know that the fruit has to be this color. And so the colors can range from orange to green to dark brown or dark orange. So it'll be along the lines of this. And then there's the in-between colors, where it's kind of a mix right in between orange and yellow, or yellow and green, or brown and green. And another thing that we look at is the size of the fruit. So there's 3 different categories that we'll follow, which is small, medium, and large. I actually found this right off the wharf when we first landed in Molokai. We were kind of just walking along the beach and looking for some coconuts. And I found this fully matured, super small seed. Kind of, you could see it fits in like my fingertips. And this is one of Jesse's niu that he found. This thing can barely fit in my hand. This thing is pretty huge. And for function, certain seeds, smaller seeds are specifically used for something, and the larger seeds are specifically used for something. And we also note the gender, and this is a cultural identification. And so we look at the bottom part of the Niu, and the female will normally be rounded like this, and the male will kind of just be more pointed. Yeah, more like a tip. And it kind of follows the same way that the flower is. Yeah, the flower, if you see the coconut flower, the female flower is circular and the male flower is pointed like this. And then we'll also count the number of fruits in a branch. And normally it will be pretty consistent throughout the tree. If you can see here, you see about 7 in one branch, and also here it's about the same. So throughout the tree, it'll kind of be around that, or like 6, 7, or 8, but that will kind of be the average of the Niu on one branch. And one of the last things we look at is the stem morphology, and being able to distinguish a dwarf from a tall. A lot of people, they just see short trees and think that they're dwarfs, but the tree can be this short and be a tall tree. And some of the indicators that we look at are the leaf scars, which are these lines that go horizontal on the trunk. And the more leaf scars there are and closer together, you can tell that it's a dwarf. Yeah, it shows how slow growing the tree is. The tree grows a leaf about every month. So you can see that every one of these leaf scars represents about a month growth. And when we look at the tall trees, yeah, there's less leaf scars, but they're farther apart and they're a lot thicker. So you can kind of see the difference from here to here or here to here, yeah. And whenever we're looking at the trunk, some of the functions or characteristics we'll look at for functionality is the bowl, yeah, or this part where it's kind of bulging. And this is kind of ideal for making pahu. And when we're thinking about kumunio, yeah, the word kumunio, kumu is a teacher, yeah, someone that we look up to that teaches us. And this coconut tree is something that teaches us a lot of things. When we're talking about the bowl, yeah, we use the bowl to make pahu. There's a mo'olelo or a story that happened in Maui when we visited. There was these 2 trees that were growing and they got struck by lightning. And so they ended up cutting those trees down, and one was sent up Mauka to be worked on and one was sent down by the ocean, and they worked on these pahu separately and they brought them back together. And it just goes to draw on the manaya that these trees held. Even though it got struck by lightning and it wouldn't grow anymore, that doesn't mean it still can't be utilized. Yeah, so this tree can be utilized in all aspects, all the way from the trunk to the leaves. Yeah, you can use the leaves for decoration, for weaving basket, lei, the coconut itself. Yeah, the husk, it can be used for cordage or aha, and this is one of the strongest fibers that you can use, besides olona and some other ones. And even the shell, yeah, for those coconuts that are dried out, yeah, people just discard them, but you can actually save them, polish them, and Jesse normally makes a lot of these. He'll make this scraper for kalo, this kio'e for ava, and apu. Yeah, and even in different stages. Yeah, this is in the last stage where the coconut is starting to dry out. There's this oily meat inside that you can use for manoi or for candles, to make oil. And you can drink it, eat it, turn it into coconut milk. Yeah, niu voli. So the entire tree, you can use it for so many things. And you think, why aren't we growing more of these trees? Yeah, I always joke about how, like, if there's ever a zombie apocalypse, this would be the one tree that you want to have growing in your yard because you can utilize it in all aspects. And so just trying to the functionality of this tree. And so when we go back to growing this tree, yeah, the importance of being able to understand how to get it to that stage. When we set these nurseries, it's a very, very intricate process. Yeah, we'll pick a space, we'll lay it out, we'll measure. Some seeds will be bigger than others, so it's important that we are able to space out evenly how much can fit in one bed. And each of these boxes represent a Niu. And so when we're doing data collection to see the germination rates or to see by varieties, which ones do a little bit better, which ones kind of struggle or have a harder time, this can help with that. And all the green boxes are the healthy seeds, and all the yellow ones are the seeds that germinated but ended up dying. And then the brown ones are just dormant seeds that never sprouted. And most of these sprout within 3 months, but when we do the scarification, they can sprout within a month. This is a nursery that we just laid down at Waiʻanae Comp with the help of Elipayo and Jesse here. Um, this is about 400 coconuts, and this nursery is special to us because these are all specifically picked from the west side. So from Nanakuli Ahupua'a all the way to Kaʻala. We just drove around and we kind of just went door to door and, told them about the work that we're doing and if we could put their trees and their seeds back into the community and being able to grow it and give it back out later on. And this is a group called Le Kaiaulu. They help out Jesse guys every other Wednesday at this Aupulapula nursery. And so, drawing back on like what we stand for and what we're rooted in, yeah, and community and aloha aina. It's kind of just this reciprocal relationship of being able to connect people back to Niu and connect Niu back to us, and being able to do this not only with kids but on all different scales and different organizations. And it's really just about honoring our coconut heritage. It's more than a job for us. It's really like intrinsically trying to understand how Niu works and all the different ways that you can use it. I'm from Nanakuli, so it's really hot where we're at, and this is in West Oahu. Same story. Yes, I know Vela is what Auntie Manu calls it. And so one of the uses that we use the coconuts for is for soil retention and water retention. Yeah. So we'll put the coconuts upside down on the bottom. Yeah, so it'll help capture the water. And then we'll throw some fish meal for nutrients, some soil, plant the niu, and then coconut husk back up, husk down. Yeah, so this husk is connected to the roots. Yeah, the root structures that's gonna grow out and kind of maintain that water right above it. I've also seen people use coconut husk as a wall. So they'll build a wall around it. Yeah, it will kind of just capture all of that and hold it in. And this is how we will normally plant not only Niu but other plants as well. Like ulu is in this tree. Yeah, ulu takes a lot of water, but it's a good way to help with you live in areas that are a lot hotter. And growing Niu not only by itself but ulu Niu, yeah, groves. They were an ancient royal practice. A lot of chiefs would grow coconuts. Yeah. This picture right here was Kamehameha's residence. Yeah, what was known as Halumoa. And this is Kapui was Latin Molokai and Pokai down here. And their chiefs were smart in the sense, yeah, to take care of their people. They not only grew coconuts for sustenance, yeah, but to be able to survive. And also, there's a lot of mo'olelo that draws on coconuts being planted for people. Um, Auntie Wainani talks about stories out in Kalailoa how a lot of those trees in the area were planted for ohana. And when we went seating up Nanakuli Ave, there's this one family, the Peneku Ohana, and she had 3 kids, and she planted one coconut tree for each kid. And Mo'olelo talks about how, if that tree got sick, you know that your child will get sick. Yeah, so it's kind of an indicator of that. And it dives deeper into malama, yeah, being able to nourish not only your plant, but your children. Yeah, because trees represented people. So it just drew on that ideology of being able to malama the things that that you nurture and you put into the ground, or the things that living things see you. And so we've kind of adopted this practice of planting in a polymotu style. And so we'll plant in this triangle right here. Yeah, we'll plant 3 trees, 10 feet apart, and motus will normally from here to here. Yeah, each motu will be about 40 feet apart. This is at West Oahu. This is at Ulupo. This is the most recent planting that we've done, and this is at Kūkaniloko. Yeah, and then the different colors is all the different varieties by numbers, and so this style of planting is enhances the way that the genetics stay true to each other. Yeah, during population, we normally would plant of the same variety in each motu. And it kind of just helps when that pollination starts to occur. It'll keep it true, yeah. And if it's came straight from the makua, yeah, the seeds, so it helps it to stay true to the makua as well. So yeah, this is a ulupo. This was a special planting for us. If you see right here, Nalamaku's holding a he'e or an octopus. This is a super old style of planting. There's a mo'olelo that talks about they would plant the he'e with the niu, and this would encourage the roots to stretch out into the aina and stick to the aina like the suction cups of the octopus. And the head would actually represent the niu that would fall from the tree. And so this was a super special planting for us. We planted 30 niu here, and this was the first time I got to plant in the old style. And so just being able to draw back on mo'olelo and history and deeper meanings of how we plant. This was our big planting up at Kaʻala. We planted 100 trees in 3 different locations. This was super special to me. I was grew up in going to Kaʻala in elementary. Yeah, we'd go there for field trips in third, fourth, fifth grade, working in the lo'i, working on in the mala, and this is Nanakuli Elementary right here. Kekai is their kumu, and they just being able to see the keiki come out. Yeah, this picture is special because the trees that they planted, the very first tree that was planted, it's in direct sight or in direct line of the tree that it came from across the hale, and that tree is now make. So this tree standing there in this area is kind of a statement, yeah, for the new generation. And these keiki also represent that new generation, yeah, the young generation, and they're learning and they're building their ike for new. And so it's kind of a full circle moment to see this happening and to be able to be a part of it. Here at Kūkaniloko, this was one of the first biggest plantings that was done. There was 108 trees that were planted here and still being maintained. This is Kahea guys, and Ioane is somewhere in here. They're a main reason of the people that take care of this part of that aina. And Kūkaniloko is special. Yeah, this is the pico of our island. Yeah, Wahiwa. And so every planting that we do, it's special to us. Yeah, it's not something we just want to put in the ground. We draw on the stories and the history of the place, and just being able to see the keiki here, and when you see in like 20 years when these trees start to become super super big, yeah, and to see where these keiki will be at, this will be a blessing for them to be able to see how far they've come and how far things have grown. And this is our Ulu Niu and Niu nursery at Kapolei in the Honolulu, Aupua'a, out at West Oahu. This was a special day for us. This was one of our biggest groups we've had. We had about 80 to 100 volunteers come, and we just had everybody line up, and we planted all about 400 coconuts here, and everybody got their hand in the soil, and everybody got to plant at least one coconut. And we just kind of just kept the circle going continuously. It rained this day. It rains every time we do a planting. It's kind of a ho'elona for us. Like, okay, yeah, this is what we should be doing. And this is like late summer, so normally you would think it's super hot, but the rains, they're always on our side. And this is kind of what the grove looks like eerily from the top now. Yeah, these trees were all babies, and now they're over 10 years old. About 3 of these trees are producing fruit right now, and just to see it come from where it started, it's so beautiful to see every day. Um, and these circles, if you guys are wondering, there's uala planted under here. It kind of helps for the retention, the water retention, and if the needles start to fall, kind of give it that brace impact. And it's just a nice plant to accompany with the needle. So not only our work on Oahu is important, but being able to spread ike niu throughout the islands. This was in Kapoho and Waiʻanae in Maui. This was a call from Kia'ikolir, and he wanted to set down a nursery, and so we set down a nursery of about 250, 300 seeds, and we're able to seed about 12 different sites around the island. And this is the space, yeah. This is the vision right here. Um, Eventually, these seeds are gonna sprout and turn into seedlings, and eventually little keikis, and they're gonna be put in the ground. And his vision is to see 200 niu and 200 lolu. Yeah, and just him being able to, he wanted to connect himself back to Niu. Yeah, a lot of the things that he does, it doesn't require being able to be around it. So he wanted to, for himself, be able to give back and reconnect himself back to growing coconuts and learning about coconuts. This was in Pailoko, Wailuku, Maui, kind of right down the road from Waiʻanae. And this was at Kanaka, and this was a special planting for us. This is Auntie Lei right here, Ishikawa. The Ishikawa Ohana is kind of the people that are the caretakers of this aina. And this was their Hawaiian immersion school that we visited that day. This place was special because they talked about Niu Hiva. Yeah, it's said to be an old ancient Hawaiian variety, and they talked about Maui roping the sun. Yeah, it's a story that we all know, that we've all grown up hearing, and they talked how the rope that was used came from the Niu Hiva. And so being able to dive deeper into these stories of Mo'olelo that we already knew, yeah, it's special for us to understand that connection. Like, these Niu were functional and specific to stories. Yeah, so this Niu Hiva was specific to the story of Maui roping the sun. And just being able to be a part of this and start new nurseries there and kind of give them that spark to, cherish things that they already have going on there, on a deeper level, for ourselves as well. And this is, I think, one of the last trips that we've done was at Ka'akepa, which is in Puna, Hawaii. For me, Puna is kind of like the Nanakuli of Big Island, so we kind of just felt right at home over here. Super, super diverse. They have a grove of over 1,300 coconut trees. Yeah, our last visit there, we Idrit was able to identify at least 12 distinct varieties within this area, and we were able to trace some of that genealogy, or that mokuauhau. Yeah, there's an old church on this ground, and when you look back into old records, yeah, a lot of churches were gifted Niu, and so those trees that were planted were there for a really long time, probably as long as that church was standing. And so just being able to understand these sort of things, and um, we have a project going on with Puna, and they're gonna be the foundation of a lot of work and research for Niu and a new database. And so just being able to build this connection, the first time we tried to go out over here, it kind of got canceled, so we had to reschedule, and then we finally got out there for their ohana camp, the Nalao o Ka'akepa, and they just kind of have their ohana go down there and just camp and enjoy their surroundings. Yeah, away there's no service, and just being able to do all these types of things. We ran a new workshop there. We did an apu workshop. We went over the stages, and we just really talked story about the types of things that they see every day, and just being able to see all the diversity that it holds. Super special for them because with the CRB attacking a lot of our trees, we don't have a lot of places like this to go to, um, and so that kind of just transitions me into why it's important to understand, yeah, your damage, and what the CRB is doing here in Oahu. And this is in the guidance of the SPC, or South Pacific Communities, this grading scale. This is an established protocol from other Pacific islands who are also being affected and dealing with similar issues of the CRB. And so when looking at this scale, yeah, we can see 1, there's no CRB. 2, you just kind of see this notching damage. 3, it's about 20 to 50% frond loss, and you see a lot more damage here. 4, it's almost greater than 50% frond loss. The growing point is still attached, but it's kind of suffering right here. And 5, the palm is either dead, or this lau'o, or the new leaf, where the heart that connects straight to the heart, it's not growing anymore. Yeah, so these trees are pretty much make. And so if we look over here on the right side, I coincidentally found this picture randomly in my album. I used to just take random pictures of nature, and I found this tree of this picture that I took of the trees at Keneo'io, or what we know as tracks. This picture was from 2015, and you kind of just see how flourishing these trees were 10 years ago. Yeah, and you look at them now. This is this year, and you can kind of tell the difference in the damages. Yeah, you see this is a 5 right here on the scale. This tree is make. This is about a 4. This is a 3. These are 2s, and this is what it would look like with no damage. Yeah, and so just being able to understand your Niu and your damage index, and also understanding how the tree grows. Yeah, when we're looking at the trunk. Yeah, when we're trying to see how old a tree is, normally you can tell by the leaf scars. Yeah, that's one indicator. Because every month, yeah, this is a month's worth of growth, so you just count about 11 to 12. Yeah, and that's about a year's growth. And just being able to understand the leaf growth. Yeah, this is all the new leaves that grow, and this is about the 3 to 6 month span right here, and these are kind of the older growth of the leaves down here. Yeah, 18 months to 24 months, 21 months. Yeah, and just being able to understand that. And so I know this is a lot of numbers. You don't have to read every single one, but we kind of just did a survey. Yeah, from coming in from Keneo'io, the Ko'olina, all the way to Kiawa'ula or Ka'ena. Yeah, all the way to the end of this. And so this is kind of serving as a base of data for the west side. And we picked a random trees, yeah, a random amount of trees of 100 in each block. So we split it up in about 12 blocks, trying to stay within the parameters of the Ahupua'a, but certain we'll go by certain streets or traffic lights to kind of be easier to navigate. And tracks or Kinu'io, and then that place right next to it where the Ave is, Nanakuli Ave, Piliokahe to Nanakuli Ave. These are kind of the high points of damage. There was about 90% or 77%, 76% out in Makaha. Yeah, and these are Piliokahe to Nanakuli Ave and this J Street to Macau Street are high residential areas. Yeah, and this power plant to Piliokahe area, there's a high density of trees within the area right along the coast. And so you would expect the damage to be higher because the trees are a lot closer together and the population's a lot bigger. And so they're more susceptible to, the beetles. They're smart. They know, like, oh, okay, if this tree is here, then maybe there's a tree right next to it. And so overall, the damage index for this west side was about 60%. And that's over 50%. Yeah, that's over half of our trees getting damaged. And this is an important number to look at because if you're just driving, you could see a couple trees damaged or one or two trees damaged or a lot, but you don't really understand the parameters of how much the damage is on this side and why it's a hotspot. Yeah, people know this side to be a hotspot, but what is the data that represents it? And sorry, this is just seeing how much of each scale of the tree damage for the new damage index, how many trees are being um, affected. One thing I did want to look at was in this area, yeah, from Jade Street to Macau Street. If we look down here, about 14 trees are dead. Yeah, in this area right here. And so seeing this, yeah, when you think about it, this is kind of like the neglected area. Yeah, people don't want to drive all the way out here. This is the end point of coming in. Yeah, traffic over here is bad enough, but just being able to see this neglect though, like all these trees are dead and still standing, like, and there's nothing being done. Yeah, whether it's not having the knowledge of it or just not having the manpower to do it. And so this is important to know because it's kind of a kahea, like they're calling out to us. They're saying like, hey, like we need help. We need to solve this problem. Yeah, not only with CRB damage in general, but even specific to places. And I thought this was a super important number to kind of look at. And so some of the solutions we're trying to do, we're trying to adopt this practice called tekken netting. And so there's this gill net or this monofilament netting that they use, and so they use it to cover their mulch piles, and it's big enough to where the beetle can get in, but they can't get back out. So kind of trap them right here, and this has been used not only for monitoring but for control. And when we talk to people about the things that we do. Yeah, this is kind of the practices that we do in our Niu nurseries or our Ulu Nius. So we'll wrap the tree with netting right around the crown. our trees are small enough to be able to wrap from the trunk up, because they're only about 5 years old, and so we're able to do this method there. For trees that are a lot taller, it is a lot harder because you have to, get a lift or something to get up there, or um, try to find a way to get that netting, or however you do your method. And it's pretty efficient for us, even for when we cover the mulch. Yeah, it prevents the beetles from getting in, or if there's already larvae present that was already breeding, it prevents them from getting out. But really stress on, there's a certain size this netting comes in, so we have to lay a couple of layers down, and you can see kind of the lines of where they end. And so we zip tie, or we run a string. The string is a lot more efficient because then we can run the string down the entire thing. So kind of just threading it in and being able to fill in any pukas. Yeah, these beetles are smart, so they'll be able to find it. Um, but just giving it the best chance possible to be able to, control the population, and being able to catch them. And this is just some of the examples of how many beetles can be caught. Um, Normally, like on a good day, we'll catch about like, I'd say like 4 to like 12, sometimes even more, depending how bad the tree's getting attacked. Um, on this one, you can see there's a lot all here. Yeah, all in these circles. And we'll kind of just remove their head and leave them in there as like a to show everybody else, like, hey, you don't want to come in this netting or you're gonna make. But we kind of just leave them in there, but also to show like, hey, this is how much beetles is attacking this tree. And one of the things we've noticed is there's a heightened activity of beetles during the full moon cycles, and it kind of draws back to the idea of their attraction to light. And so, with people that are trying to, advance these methods of control, that these are some things to take into consideration. Um, but yeah, a lot of our trees, like we just planted these in 2020, and within 5 years, mostly all of them are getting attacked. Yeah, the damage over here, I think, is about like 80% of the trees. We have about 13, 12 trees at the Uluni at West Oahu, and I think there's only one or two that's not getting attacked down below. But um, yeah, it's just being able to control your mulch, control the activity that's happening on your tree, and just always checking on them. And when we think back to, the whole purpose of this and safeguarding Niu and diversities and specific trees, yeah, this was one of the first slides that I showed. And these are all pictures of specific varieties of Niu, yeah. These are, there's this pink husk Niu. Um, this is actually a Niu that actually has pretty sweet water. Yeah, there's not a lot of places that this grows, so when we do find it, this is a special one to grow. You can even see on the flower or the inflorescence, it'll also be pink, so that's kind of an indicator. It'll actually be darker than this, yeah. When it starts to be lighter, and there's just different varieties of this Niu. But this is said to be like one of the original varieties. This characteristic right here of the pink husk. There's also ones that have a higher female inflorescence that's visible. And so these circle ones, yeah, these are all the female flowers, and these pointed ones are all the male flowers. So they'll take the pollen from this and put it in the female. And as you can see the difference from here to here, yeah, you can distinctively see how much male flowers there are on female flowers. And here, there's way more female flowers growing on a single branch. And so this is important for functionality, yeah. When we grow coconuts, we want to grow trees that produce more coconuts, yeah. And this is one of the characteristics of trees that can produce more female flowers, hence they would produce more coconuts, depending on their survival once they start to mature, yeah. Um, this is a spicata variety, and this is a variety of Niu where the Niu is super, super large. These are kind of one of the biggest Niu I've seen. My hands are pretty small, but these Niu are like bigger than your head kind. It's Kaʻala has a variety like this. There's a lot of different places that's specific to that area where they have Niu that are super huge. Yeah, we call these nuis. And this last one right here, this was from the Hawaiian farms in Maui, and there's a little talks about why there's no seed in this Niu, and it's a story that says that one night the moon was so hungry that he ate the coconuts, but he left them on the tree. So I don't know if that was kind of like a joke for him, but if you think about functionality though, like these trees without the seed, yeah, they have more kaula or they have more husk inside. So these are trees to be grown for kaula makers or aha makers. And you see all the different unique varieties that we have here, and you think, yeah, we really don't really know all the different types of coconuts there are. We see a coconut that's circle, we're like, okay, that's a coconut. But being able to draw on all these different characteristics, these traits that make them special to what they are and who they are, um, that's kind of one of the big things. And being able to connect it back to functionality. Yeah, the coconut tree was a tree of life in Hawaii, and just being able to draw on that aspect of why it represented life. Yeah, it represented history, mo'olelo stories, um, and yeah, this is kind of just all the people that we work with and kind of play a big role in a lot of the work that we do. So yeah, just a big shout out, and yeah, mahalo you guys for your guys' time, these resources.
Thank you. This was awesome. We will open the floor up now for any questions. You can type them in the chat box in the Q&A, or you can raise your hand and we can unmute you to ask any questions live. While we wait for people, oh, here we have a hand raised. Allowed to talk. Okay.
Aloha. Thank you for that wonderful presentation. I have been trying to do more research on Niu and all of its wonderful properties, and even tying some connections to our cousins in Tahiti who also have stories of the Niu and the Puhi. I don't know if you heard that story, and Hina, the Princess Hina. Um, but I think I I didn't even know about, is it the grove that's here in Puna. A lot of times I've been referring, since I serve in East Hawaii, um the only like famous grove of coconut trees that I know are in Molokai. Um the one that was established by Kamehameha Elima. And so I was just wanting to mostly comment and mahalo for sharing more of the different features and locations of our new that we need to protect, because I think that's really important. And our mo'olalos.
Mahalo for that. Yeah, super special for us. So, growing up on this west side, I didn't even know Pokai Bay was a Uluniu Grove too. And we're out there all the time, and so I understand that being able to draw back to that stories and that connection to these places. So mahalo for that.
We had a question in the chat from Josh, and I think this is referring to the characterizing the different types of Niu. And the question was, for the range of fruit colors, are those all fully ripe? And Indra answered that some are still maturing, but I wanted to follow up on that question. So when you decide the color, at what stage do you like pick the fruit from, or like decide from? Like, is it right when the nut forms, or is it when they're a little bit more mature, or is it just any stage?
I take on that question. Yeah. Normally we look at the fruit like over 10-month mature. Fruit is mature and establish its genetics colors. Sometime, when the fruit is starting to mature, they may change the color also after they mature and when they start into fully mature, which is in the Hawaiians called the o'o to malo stage. They change the color again. In this case, we look at the fruit color once they start into mature. Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, so as we wait to see if there's any more questions that come in, we have just a quick after webinar poll. So we can go ahead and launch that while we wait to see if anyone else types their questions in the chat or raises their hands to see if we have any other questions. Give this about a minute as well.
I wanted to ask, I don't know if I missed the part about the dogs that help to identify the CRB, but like I guess my question is, what do you guys know about the success rates of using the dogs to mitigate CRB?
Yeah, I can go ahead and probably take that one. So some of the dogs that we have trained for CRB, so they're able to smell CRB in like different breeding sites. And so they're trained to smell the larva. And then once they smell the larva, they'll sit as a response. And then we could go in and dig and find if there's breeding going on there. They're super helpful for scenarios where there's lots of material that would take a long time to search through, or even finding breeding sites in more unsuspecting places. They've been able to identify breeding in places where we wouldn't typically expect CRB to be. So things like small amounts of like a decaying stump and things like that.
I don't know. And I guess the things that we can do proactively, as you mentioned in the presentation about like the netting, and mahalo for giving more details on what kind of netting can be purchased. Because I haven't seen that type of prevention that we could do to one, trap it and then see like how much impact. But is there I almost feel like, because it looks like those are just like fishing nets, but if there's more workshops that you guys are offering to just kind of showcase how to do those types of methods to Hawaiian Niu to prevent them from being impacted by CRB.
Yeah, we kind of go out and we do like educational workshops. I think there's also a video when we did a Earth Day or something at Miley. Someone recorded it, but yeah, just super. When wrapping the tree, it's important not to suffocate it. So like, don't like wrap it super tight around your tree. And with that specific netting, making sure that the diamonds are up like this and not like this, because the net stretches this way. So if you're putting a netting this way, it's stretching up and down the tree instead of around the tree. And just stuffing them in those the pockets where the branches grow, or the poʻaiʻai, and just making sure, because the beetles can fly, so they kind of use it as like a slide, and they'll kind of go down and then work their way into the heart from there. So just being able to stuff those pockets and not netting it too tight. We kind of take apart the netting maybe like every month, just breathing room and just loosening it up a little bit, and then adding on as the tree grows. But yeah.
Mahalo.
Mahalo.
Okay. I'm not seeing any other questions come in right now. So I think that we can go ahead and end the webinar. I just wanted to say thank you again. That was super awesome. I learned so much, and it was making me smile the whole time, looking at all the new. And so, yeah, we'll go ahead and end this webinar. Again, thank you everyone for coming.